everyone. Oh,
Check.
there, yeah. What, maybe?
No.
No. Oh, okay. I was like, I can talk really loud.
Yeah, I did turn mine on.
Oh, yeah. I did, the last one. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
There we go. See? Liven up a little bit. I know we're like right before lunch, so it always makes it a little harder. So thanks for sticking with us today. I am Lauren Steiner, and I'm also a Vegas local. So we've got a lot of Vegas locals on the stage today, so that's really exciting. Welcome to Vegas for F1. Really excited to have everybody in our city, whether you live here or not. I am sharing the stage today with Greg Hall from MoneyGram. So wanted to, also a F1 sponsor for the Haas F1 team. So I want to pass it off to you. Introduce yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see everybody. My name is Greg Hall. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for MoneyGram. I've been there about 4 years. Prior to that was 20 years in financial services, mostly direct-to-consumer type marketing with HSBC and Capital One, and then some smaller financial service companies. What else do you need to know about me? Live in Dallas, Midwest guy. Detoured through California to get to Dallas. Been there 17 years, and excited to be here. So looking forward to it.
Nice. So today we are talking a little bit about creators, ambassadors, and the in-between. So we are going to start off today with really what factors are most important to you when looking at creators or ambassadors, and how you bring them on and really vet them.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't think there's a perfect answer. How many people use creators, influencers, ambassadors? And we probably all use them slightly differently, or even within what you do, you have different groups or categories. For us, it's been quite a learning process. A little bit about MoneyGram, if you don't know about MoneyGram, because this will help set up the conversation. We're a global company. We've been around 80 years. We operate in 200 countries, in over 400,000 physical retail locations. In the last 6-7 years, our business has transformed digitally, where more than half of our transactions are now done by the phone or computer. So think of us as basically like a Venmo for cross-border. So we allow people to send money to relatives and family in other countries. So most of our customers are immigrants. They've gone to another country, they're making money, they're sending money back to family, loved ones for multiple different reasons. So when we think about the use of creators and ambassadors and influencers, and we kind of use those words interchangeably, I know there's a clear definition. One thing we've really focused on is trying to find not only ones that have enough eyeballs or followers, but ones that really resonate with what we're trying to accomplish, primarily from a brand perspective. And so when we think about F1, I think which we're going to talk about in a little bit, how we selected F1 and how we selected Haas as our partner, and the brand alignment and the culture alignment, it's very similar to influencers. And so we can talk about some, and I can't remember where we're going in this conversation, but definitely want to talk about a few of them, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But it's really about making sure they resonate with your customer beyond eyeballs. And then for us, because we have so many immigrants, it's looking at the different diasporas and how do we use them. So if I'm running a US to Mexico campaign, getting an influencer who's from Mexico and lives in the United States and has been sending money back is really powerful. And it's more powerful than getting a big name that has a lot of eyeballs that doesn't do any of those things, right? So that's how I think about it.
No, that was about the question. It kind of blends as well into our next question. And MoneyGram has worked with global ambassadors, or I call them like celebrity like influencers, like Hobby LeMay. He has the most followers on TikTok. I find him very, very interesting. And Rashid Khan, he is
cricketer.
Yeah, cricketer, but he's ranked really high, right?
Oh yeah. Does anybody know cricket? Anybody know Rashid Khan? If you know cricket, you don't know Rashid. If you don't know cricket, you don't know Rashid Khan. But he's one of the most popular cricketers in the world. He's from Afghanistan. He plays on actually 7 different teams. He was in Dallas earlier this year for a competition and came to our headquarters. And I know his stats and I know who he is. But when we had our employees come in and they came in, they're big cricket fans. Honestly, they thought it was like seeing Michael Jordan for them. Like that's how big this guy is. He's really, really impressive.
And let's talk about, and I'm going to take a step back, let's talk about Kaveh LeMay. And I think it's really interesting, the conversation that you and I were having about him, about why you chose him. And it wasn't necessarily that he had the most followers on TikTok, right? But he resonated with the brand. And I think that that's the most important. And when you think about a creator coming on board and how, are they authentic, right? So I think we all earlier were talking about authenticity and how are they authentic to the brand, and talk about why you chose him, because I think it just, sends it all up.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. It's been fun working with him. Does everyone know who Kaveh LeMay is, or anybody know who Kaveh LeMay is? So he's from Senegal. He's the most followed TikToker in the world. He's 162 million people following him on TikTok. He's a guy who would take life hacks, and you'd see a little video, and they'd show him doing something, and then he would do it really simply, and his move was like, so if you ever...
He doesn't use his voice at all.
Yeah, and so he never speaks, and so one of the ways he's really endeared himself across cultures and whatever is just by not speaking. Right, and because just simple moves and creating life hacks has been fun. We worked with him, and yes, it's great that he has the most followers on TikTok. That's a big deal. But going back to my first comment, when we learned about Kaveh, he's from Senegal, spent a lot of time in Italy, but he and his family have been MoneyGram customers for a long time. So he knew us, he knew our brand, which we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so when we started talking to him, we connected really quickly with he understands our customer. He understands, people have gone somewhere else and are sending back and all these things. So when you think about engaging him in content or using him for activation, those things, rank really high for how we think about it. The engagement we have with him is going to be it's about a year deal. And so it started with a launch in Brazil where we launched a new wallet product for the Brazilian market. And what's great about Kaveh, you guys know this from influencers, you can see where their follower bases are. His two biggest ones are US and Brazil. And so that kind of fell into place, but we used him for really generating a lot of awareness on a new wallet product. We did a big activation, we took him to the F1 race. There's a lot of funny stories about that. But really it's more about who he is and what he's about versus the 162 million followers. Well, that is good, but yeah.
I mean, and just that he was, I think that talking about too, he was a client, he used...
Still does.
Yeah, he still does. I mean, I think that's really important. I also think it's really important when you look at contracting with some of these ambassadors, and when they're authentic to your brand, they are not necessarily just following the line items on that contract, and they're participating more as a partner. So if you want to share a little bit more about that, I think that that's a really interesting play on making sure that you're, getting a little bit more ROI out of who you guys are choosing as, your creator.
Yeah, we chatted about this in our prep call for this. Yeah. On the other end of the spectrum, we use other influencers, and I mentioned the U.S. to Mexico. I have a very good example. There's a woman named Dr. Daisy Sanchez. So she's from Mexico, came to the U.S., is now a doctor, and has been sending money back with MoneyGram for years. She has 5 siblings. Her dad has 15 brothers and sisters. She has this massive family. So she has this really great and compelling story. But we've worked with Daisy and people like her, and she has about 2 million followers, maybe slightly less, so just relative speaking, but a really engaged group and one that really resonates. But what we've found is, as we've worked with more and more creators, yes, you'll have the contract, and the contract will say they'll do 3 posts, and one's this date, and 2 are after the event, and whatever it is. And what we found is when we host them, and it's like just normal life. If you treat people well and have a good time, they start posting and doing things and tagging that aren't even part of the contract. And what we find is there's this reciprocity, and we've done multiple deals with her. We worked with her at Mother's Day. This fall we did a big U.S. to Mexico campaign that she was at the center of. And so you can build relationships, and then, I always like to say, if you have to look at the contract, you don't really have a great deal, or something's gone wrong, say it that way. And so what we find is by building these relationships, we tend to get more selfishly as a brand out of it, but they're also getting more because they're being supported by us and getting experiences that they can't otherwise get.
Yeah, I like the organic content that you end up getting out of it. So with Adomni, that's who I am with, we're a video ads platform. And so what we do is we do cross-channel marketing. And I think one of the biggest things and one of the big things I always ask is, how are you measuring? Because we have unified measurement and unified reporting, and I think that that's really important in our business and for our brands. And so I brought this up and I said, well, what are you doing in marketing? Are you using cross channels? And how are you measuring your success? And I think, how are you measuring your success? One, with the ambassadors, and are you just using social? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. Does anybody else get asked what they get out of the dollars they spend with influencers? Oh my God.
Oh, I let Monster says yes.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's and we're owned by private equity, so I get asked even to like the nth degree every single time.
Yes.
It's like, oh,
love those board meetings.
They're fantastic. No, but it's and I have people that are in the audience. They vouch that I pretty much ask every time if we're going to do something, what are we getting out of it? So I'm guilty as well. I'd say from a KPI perspective, again, it depends on how we're trying to use them, right? So for Kabi and what we did in Brazil, it was really an awareness campaign. We were launching a new wallet, and the KPIs were really around, the heavy ones were around, are we getting eyeballs? Are we getting some trial? Are we getting people to download? A lot of high funnel, upper funnel type activities. Certainly we measured, are people actually using it, but the purpose for him was to create this kind of moment, right? When we used Daisy in Mexico, use that example, when we were specifically running a US to Mexico campaign. And so the KPIs there were actually very lower funnel. Like with her. So it was like, can we leverage her to create eyeballs, create lift, but do we see that lift pull through? Some of the ways we'll do that is we'll have promotions, whether it was with Davey or with Kabi. Kabi helped us. Actually, we have 4 winners here today. We ran a campaign. David out there ran this campaign. Yeah. And so we have a promotion that we ran out of Brazil, but it was for Brazil, US, and 4 European countries. Again, the strength of somebody like Kabi who has a following in all these different countries and resonates. What we ran a promotion to win tickets to the F1 race here in Las Vegas, win what we call a Dream Weekend. And you know how we measure that is, and we expect a ridiculous amount of response to this. It's a pretty amazing prize. But we send it to our customers and target audiences. And then we will measure hard numbers, like how many people came in, how many downloaded, how many signed up, how many registered, how many were able to pull through, how many transact, all of those good things. But it is a mix. And at the end of the day, there's an ROI on all of it, but the upper funnel is always tougher to put a hard ROI on.
Yeah. I mean, and I like that. Obviously, doing a sweepstakes like that, you get a lot of first-party data. And so that's obviously most likely your goal.
that is definitely a primary goal, and it's one of David's goals out there.
Yes. He's like, that's what I'm doing. Making sure that we can retarget. So kind of talked about what you're doing with these ambassadors. What does 2025 look like for your marketing approach?
Yeah, as far as ambassadors and creators, we're really trying to figure out how to integrate. And there's some fun challenges we're thinking about. For example, how do you want 20 daisies or do you want 1 Kabi? That's not an easy answer, right? And it's very different. I think for us, it's going to be when we're trying to run campaigns that are much more broad, not corridor focused. Mm-hmm. Then I want 20 daisies, but I want one from Mexico, one from the Philippines, one from Jamaica, one from Ghana, etc. And we're trying to tie these together now in a more cohesive way for more broad-based campaigns. That's one area we're looking at in 25. The stuff we're doing with Kabi is pretty exciting. I can't share all of it. It's been announced that he has a movie coming up. We will be working with him in and on that. So that's going to be pretty exciting for us. And at the end of the day, we were trying to do 2 things at MoneyGram. When I mentioned we're like this old brand, and quite honestly, 4 years ago, I would argue we were kind of an old, boring, stodgy brand, and some might say we still are. But I think we've done a long way of changing that, right? And F1's been a big part of that. And so then how do we lean into creators to make us more relevant, make us more current, make us more Gen Z than we really are, and continue to move that perception of the brand up while growing more and more the digital business, which is our big growth arm.
So you kind of led into the next question, talking about F1. Obviously, we are here in Vegas, and so many fun and exciting activations for MoneyGram because of your sponsorship. So let's talk about what are you doing here at F1? What are you doing with Haas team? And Yeah, let's just chat about that.
Yeah, I mean, I get asked why F1 a lot, and then I really quickly get asked, how do you justify F1?
Fair.
But it goes like, they go hand in hand. Like, why F1 is, again, old brand. We were bought by a private equity firm. They would like to sell us in a few years or take us back public and have a nice multiple. Two ways that you really have to move the needle there is, one is you have to continue to grow your business, be more profitable, and generate free cash flow and all those things. The other thing it really helps is changing your brand perception. So when we look at a multiple and a comparative set, are they comparing us to Western Union, or are they comparing us to Revolut, Chime, Cash App, others who get significantly higher multiples? Part of that is your product offering and your digital growth, but also some of it's just plain old perception. And so F1 was an investment that we made to try to help with both of those, try to help change perception, and then try to help attract new customers, younger audiences, kind of the future, and show that we're growing that digital base. F1 is a really, really unique opportunity when you're a global company, because they race in 20 different countries. So I can do European soccer, but I can't activate an event anywhere outside of Europe. Same with the U.S. NBA, you could probably activate in a couple different countries, but nothing like the NBA, nothing like F1. To put it in dollars, we do a third of our business of revenue in the U.S. We do 70% or a little over 70% of revenue in the 20 countries that are represented where all the races occur. So there's a really strong overlap with where our customers are in F1. And then the other thing about F1, when we think about branding, going back to my first comment, when you're making this big of an investment, we really looked at what are the brand attributes we're going to pick up that we can leverage. And so with F1, it's all about innovation and technology and speed and really safety. And when you're sending money globally, all of those things are ridiculously important, right? So those went hand in hand very well. Haas, on the when we talk about which team, because there's 10 teams in F1, Haas was the only U.S.-owned team that also has more of the revenue outside of the U.S. than we do. They're a bit of a challenger brand, right? With that F1, they're a 100% challenger brand, right?
Yes.
You know, and so that resonated because we've always been a challenger brand. We're not as big as a lot of our competitors. They have bigger marketing budgets and all of those things. And so there was this quick cultural fit with them. And then there was our desire to be more than a sticker on the car, right? Like, if we're going to really get value out of this and change perception and we're going to drive more usage, I can't just get eyeballs. You know, I have to get eyeballs and earned media, and I have to get new people registering for promotions that bring in new customer segments and then continue to drive business. And those are the ways we measure, you know, the success of this investment. So working with Haas allowed us a lot more liberties than if we had worked with one of the, say if we worked with Ferrari, which HP is doing, which is really awesome, but you're in a box. You're this sponsor and you get these spaces and this. Haas wanted a partner as well. And so we get a lot more liberty, get a lot more access. We do a lot of creative work with the team. So when we bring people in, whether it's with drivers or hosting people, it's a really bespoke experience that I think we wouldn't get if we were with a bigger brand, because quite honestly, we wouldn't be as big a deal to them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. You're actually getting to build a partnership instead of being, you know, sometimes you call it a partnership, but you really feel like you're just one-sided. And so I think that that's really cool that you get to collaborate, bring things to life. What do you have a favorite activation going on this weekend, or what are you most excited for?
Oh, that's great. So on activation, I get asked this a lot on F1 too. We learned early in our F1 experience about 2 years ago to actually not activate heavily on site at races during race weekend. The primary reason is everything's about 5 times more expensive than you would if you're not at the race during the race weekend. And so,
you're in Vegas.
Yeah, and in Vegas. And so we've activated in Vegas, but we activated during the Japan Grand Prix. So the Japan Grand Prix, when it goes off, it was 10 p.m. on Saturday night in Vegas time. And so we actually ran this really cool activation. We ran on Topgolf. We had video feeds in from the garage. Back when Gunter Steiner was our team principal. So he's on the big screen. We're talking to fans. We're talking to customers. Like, it's awesome. And it was a fraction of what we would have paid this weekend. And so we tend to do things more from a virtual side on activation. So you can tell I get excited about that because I can tell a story of it's a little more economically efficient. As far as what we're excited about this weekend, we've got folks that have won this competition. They're customers that are coming from Brazil and coming from the U.S. They're passionate about MoneyGram. The greatest thing we do is bring them into the paddock. It is an experience you can't replicate. and you guys have been in the paddock or seen a, Drive to Survive, you can go and be like, I'm from Dallas, you go to the Cowboys, as bad as they are, you can still be in their locker room and it's cool, right? But you're not going to take a selfie with anybody walking onto the field. Whereas you're in the paddock, you're taking selfies with our drivers, Charles Leclerc, whoever you want, and they're about to go drive 220 miles an hour around a track. Like, it's ridiculous with the access you get to these things. And so the experiences you can create are really fun to see, and having 4 guests here this weekend is probably the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I love that. And I love being able to show people and host people that have never had that experience, and their face lights up. So I think that's really cool. I had one last little personal touch. I have a nanny, and she works, and she always sends money home. And so I was very familiar with MoneyGram and supportive, and I think it's really cool because you're reaching all different, from the younger generation to the older generation. And so I think it's really, really cool and very supportive. So I hope everybody has a great F1 weekend. Be safe out there and have fun. Thank you so much for sharing the stage with me.
Thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.